Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Prince George's Community Federal Credit Union 2022 Financial Webinar Series. Today's presentation is brought to you by, in partnership with Coffee, a nationwide financial coaching and education center focusing on improving the financial health of individuals. As the premier credit union of Prince George's County, we have joined with Coffee to expand our mission of providing quality financial education to our community and lending insight into credit management, home ownership, and money management. Prince George's Community Federal Credit Union is a full-service financial institution serving anyone who lives, works, or worships in Prince George's County, Maryland. We are one of the county's best-kept secrets with competitive and savings rates, as well as discounts to national retailers. We currently serve over 17,000 members in the area and welcome you to come and experience the benefits of membership as well. Later on in this presentation, we will display our contact information and answer any specific questions you may have concerning your financial needs. It's not too late to invite your friends and colleagues to join today's webinar. You should have received an email about 30 minutes ago. In that email is a link you can pass along for them to register and join the call. Please note that today's webinar is live and all phone lines have been muted. If you have questions, please feel free to type it into the question box on the right hand of your menu bar. All questions are private and will be addressed at the end of our discussion. Also, please disregard any annual meeting comments that you may have received in the email. We will also be offering a free 60-minute financial coaching session with the completion of 3 webinars. More information will be given at the end of today's presentation on that. Lastly, a recording of today's session will also be available later on today on the site that you registered at, which is www.princegeorgescommunitycfcu.org/webinar. And with that, I'll be turning it over to Ms. Doris Baker.
Hello and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule this morning to attend this very, what I believe is informative webinar. Thank you to everyone at Prince George's Community Federal Credit Union. I always get that name really mixed up, but thank you all so much for inviting Coffee to come and share financial education. As we get started today, you see our opening slide, 2022 Financial Webinar Series, but more than a disease, a disaster. Now, who would have thought that almost 24 months later, we are still dealing with COVID-19? I never would have thought it, but here we are. And if anything, we've learned to pay close attention to our finances during this season. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that after these, say, 22 months, over 800,000 deaths in this country, and the effect of millions of households financially due to the COVID-19 virus and the various variants that have come forth, we really need some eye-opening and some awakening when it comes to our finances. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's talk about credit. Credit is very important. And before we get into anything about the pandemic as far as credit, let's just simply define credit. And credit, in a nutshell, is your ability to borrow money, okay? It is your ability to borrow money. And whenever we borrow money, we want to do that at the very lowest of interest rates. Now, I would hope that during the past couple of years, we would have limited our borrowing of funds, but that is far from the truth. And we may get into some of those numbers a little bit later, but we just wanted to define what credit is. Okay, next slide. So it is impossible to talk about credit without talking about our credit score. So basically, your credit score is a number that summarizes you as a consumer, your credit risk. This is what a lender is going to look at. And it's the credit score is brought to being by factors. As you know, factors can be changed. So it's based on your behaviors, how you handle certain things. I like to tell some of the seminar and webinar attendees that I often engage with that a credit score is like a picture. It would be a photograph. Now, you know that we have with our cell phones and different types of cameras, we have filters. And some of those filters that can be used can make a person look totally different from actuality. Okay. I like to use also that, remember back in the day, and I know I'm really going to age myself, not alone. Also, along with this gray hair, is there used to be a time when we ladies would go to a place called Glamour Shots, and honey, Glamour Shots could work miracles. So I want you to think on the higher range, that if your credit score is higher, you are a Glamour Shot, okay? And we'll talk about those ranges. And if those ranges are lower, well, due to your behaviors, lack of makeup, or I see someone remember Glamour Shots, yes. Your lack of makeup application, the know-how, the use of credit, then guess what your score will look like to some lenders? It will look like a mug shot. So we're going to compare Glamour Shots or mug shots, okay? As we move on, and bear with me in my folly. So now, as you can see, there are different things that make up your credit score. And we're going to talk about what makes up your credit score. The largest amount is that 35%, which is your payment history. We're going to go through this rather quickly. Next is the amounts owed. Then you have your length of credit history, your new credit, and your credit mix. So as you can see, that largest chunk, again, it bears repeating, is your payment history. But you can also need to pay close attention to that 30%, which is the amounts that's owed, and that 10%, which is your types of credit in use. And that 30 plus that 10 is 40%. That's also very important in impacting your credit score, and it represents how we use credit, okay? Creditors want to see how much you owe. Creditors really want to see, are you using credit? Can I use the word willy-nilly if I can just be comfortable? It's just because you have the ability to use it that you're just out here swiping here, there, and everywhere? Or are you very conscious about how much you owe? That's something that's going to be looked at, and you always need to keep this in mind. The amount you owe, I'm going to really hone in on this, needs to be 30% or less of what you have the ability to owe on your credit line. So I like to use one of my favorite retailers, if it's okay, and that's Mr. Macy's. I love Macy's, okay? So Macy's, should I have $1,000 credit line with Macy's, I need to ensure that my line does not go over $333, okay? To keep it a little closer to home, I like to say $300, but ideally, I need to be less than that, okay? So that I don't overuse my credit. You also want to pay close attention to that 35%. I'm going to repeat it. We're going to just be honing in on this. That 35% is that payment history. You always, under all circumstances, want to ensure that you pay your payments on time. Not only do you want to pay them on time so that you are not charged a late fee, you want to pay them on time because in the algorithm of everything credit, this is the biggest part of your credit picture, okay? You also want to make sure that whatever good credit you have that has the longest history, that you want that to remain open. Now, as far as points are concerned and how much it will affect your credit score, it's not a massive amount, but you do want a creditor to be able to look back and say that you had credit in use for quite a few years and that you kept up with the credit, meaning you paid it on time, it wasn't overused, and it was a good credit rating. Again, another no lender, no creditor wants to see you with 10 credit cards in your credit profile or in your credit history. They want to see that you have a good mix of credit. So if you have 10 credit cards, all with say $5,000 availability, that's eventually going to signal to a creditor that you're able to use that amount. Okay, and it may not look so favorable. So you want to have in there, you want to have a revolving credit, which is say an auto loan or mortgage. You want to have a credit card. You may want to have a personal line of credit, but you don't want to have a slew of credit cards, especially in these times of uncertainty. I know I spent a lot of time on that, but that's just one of my little pet peeves there. So let's move on. Let's move on to the next slide. So this slide is not gospel, okay? It could fluctuate. This is just for example, okay? So it's showing that if an individual has a credit score of 780, a score of 780, a FICO score of 780. This just wants to give you a general idea of how one of these things that you see here on this slide can happen and how it can adversely affect that 780 credit score. So say for instance, you have a nice FICO score of 780. That's better than nice. That's a very good score. And you come around, we were talking about that 30%. Remember your credit utilization, keeping it 30% or less, and you max out your score. Look how it affects it. Your 780 could then drop from 780 to between 735 and 755. Okay, let's move to the next. You 30 days late on your mortgage. This is not in addition to maxing out your credit card. For our example here, this is just one thing. 30 days late on your mortgage, okay? You can drop from that nice 780 to 670 to 690. So see the importance of paying your bills on time. Let's say you're settling a credit card debt, okay? And you come along and you tell Mr. Macy's, yes, I've had the availability to spend $1,000 and I spent that $1,000 and now I'm having a little hard time paying it back. Can we negotiate? Can we settle? Can we work? Can we work it out? Can we talk about it? Okay. And you begin to talk about it and the counselor says to you, sure. What about 500? And you says, that sounds good. I'll take the 500. But what they do not tell you, because they want some blood from a turnip, they want to get something. So what they don't tell you is that how it's going to affect your score, and how settling that debt affects your score is by dropping that nice 780. This one incident of taking a settlement can drop you from between 655 and 675. So same thing for foreclosure, same thing for bankruptcy. So you can see how these things can negatively affect your score. Moving on to the next slide, let's talk about some more adverse actions that can happen. Now, here are the effects, and this is, again, this isn't gospel, okay? But it's the truth as far as Ms. Doris is concerned, just by our examples and our research or what have you. Scenarios can be different. I can't stress that enough, okay? Scenarios can make it different. So let's just use this example that you apply for a loan, a $15,000 loan, okay? And if you have excellent credit, okay, your APR is going to be 5%, your annual percentage rate, and your monthly payment $352. If you have good credit, you see the example there, okay? Little higher APR, little higher payment. And then if your payment or if your credit history or your credit score falls within the fair range, then you see that it is going to be 15%. And then, of course, that would equate to a higher payment. So if we've learned anything through these past few, almost 2 years, hopefully it could be that we've learned how to kind of navigate as far as credit is concerned. Moving on to the next page. Or next slide, excuse me. I have pages here. Okay, so what's on your credit report? And we're going to talk a little bit about what's on your credit report a couple of slides in. The first step, if you find yourself that because life happens, you found yourself with some of these adverse things happening due to the pandemic, due to things that came about, losing jobs, losing incomes, hours being cut. We all know we went through something, and if we didn't, we're very thankful that we weren't affected, if that happens to be your testimony, but so many people that is not. So first thing we want to do when we seriously want to sit down and we want to say, take assessment, okay, is we want to get the information. So we're going to go to annualcreditreport.com. That is www.annualcreditreport.com, or you see the number that's on the screen. Because what we want to do is to get our credit reports from these three major credit reporting agencies that you see listed here: TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. And let me let you know this, that under the CARES Act that had us covered a lot economically during the bulk of the COVID-19 crisis, you are able to get a credit report from each of these credit reporting agencies, okay? And you're able to get one every week, but that's only through April of this year, okay? And that way you're able to see the information on your report. And if you need to follow it every week, you have that right and you have that option to do so now. Now, after April, it goes back to normal circumstances. Normal circumstances with annualcreditreport.com is that you would be able to get a credit report from each of the three credit reporting agencies, and you will be able to do that once in a 12-month period. So I would like to say strategically, say for instance, now is a perfect time, being that the holidays have passed. You could get, of course, all three, but you could get one now, hop ahead to say like May, get one from the other, and then you always want to get a credit report at the end of the year. Why credit report? Because you want to see the information that's being reported, be it good, bad, or indifferent, good, bad, or ugly. I want to make sure it belongs to me. And if it doesn't belong to me, we'll talk about that in a couple of slides ahead as well. Moving on to the next slide, please. Now, this is just to show that if you happen to have any of the credit cards that are listed on the screen from any of the creditors that are identified there, that you're able to view your credit report. Even some credit union, I don't know if Prince George's offer that, but if you have accounts with a credit union or you're a member of the credit union, you're able to get monthly pictures of your credit report. I would always prefer, just because of accuracy, for lack of a better word, that you would get something that would report from a lender like noted on the slide here, and that would use the different scoring types that you see here, just because it's more realistic than what you may say, more realistic than say your Credit Karmas. Okay, Credit Karma will give you a general idea, but these that we're showing here on this slide may give you a more definite idea of where your credit score stands. Next slide, please. Now, when you obtain that credit report from annualcreditreport.com, or if you choose to use one of your creditors and get it from the lender, you're going to have your information zones. You want to pay close attention to your information zones, which is going to be your personal information. If you are, say, Doris J. Baker, okay, you want to ensure that all of that information, and if you have used different aliases, from single to married, from married to married again, and you may have different names, you want to make sure that it is showing correctly. You want to check the addresses. You want to make sure that nothing is noted on there that you lived in Timbuktu, Missouri, and you are a native Floridian, okay? That you've never lived someplace. You want to check that these are indicators that something could be wrong and that someone could be using your information fraudulently. You want to look at your credit scoring results and your summary, and you'll see all of that really neatly outlined on your credit report, because like I said earlier, be it good, bad, or indifferent, you want to ensure that it is indeed yours. Again, you're going to look at those trade lines. You're going to look at derogatory accounts. You're going to see what's on there that is derogatory. If it's derogatory and it's mine, now is a good time for me to go ahead and own up to it, okay? If I don't recall it, then there are processes and procedures that right there within annualcreditreport.com, you can begin to, what's the word called? When dispute the items, okay? Also, you want to check to ensure inquiries. If it's showing recent inquiries, such as maybe from a car dealership or from a financial institution, and you know that you did not recently apply for credit, these should be things that should spark your interest and cause you to want to investigate a little more closely. Also, for your public records, you want to make sure that your public records, and in some states, I know here in Florida, that the public records will show, even if you owe child support, okay? So you want to make sure that you check everything, because we're in the midst of this pandemic. I can't believe I'm saying that, almost 2 years out now, but you still have the bad guys that are still coming out and trying, while you're sleeping, they're working hard on trying to make money off us, if I can use that, okay? Let's move to the next page and let's see how derogatory things can affect us. So how long can this haunt me? So you see here, these are the adverse things that can then be shown on your credit report, and you can see it there for yourself. And I'm just going to tell you how long the terms are for them, okay? So bankruptcy filings, they can last 10 years from the date of dismissal. That's if they're dismissed. Chapter 13 filings stay for 7 years. Civil suits, judgments, records of arrest, even 7 years from date of entry. Paid tax liens, 7 years from the date paid. Unpaid tax liens, they're indefinite, because guess what? They're unpaid, or until you at least pay the debt, pay the lien. Collection of charge off accounts, 7 years, unless it's government student loans. Student loans, I'm just going to touch student loans and I'm coming right out, okay? Student loans are an entity of their own. of their own. So any student loan issues or concerns regarding student loans, I would definitely check with my servicer in regards to student loans. You see that pay date was pushed off a little bit further, so you have time to kind of work through it, and let's see where we're going to go. Okay, adverse information. Adverse information in this case would mean late payments, any derogatory reporting, 7 years. So you can see that 7 is usually the magic number here. Let's move forward with our next slide. All right, so I got the information, I got my report. I see the damage that has been done. And now, so let's talk about what do we do. We're going to hit each one by one, but let's just read from our list. We're going to fix the mistakes. We're going to let time heal the wounds. We're going to ask these creditors for some help. And then we're going to build new positive credit references. So let's go over each one at a time as promised. So moving to the next slide. It's not unusual to find wrong information. That's why we're going to check our credit report. And from henceforward, we are going to check it at least 3 times in a 12-month period, because we can do it for my favorite 4-letter word, and that's for free. Okay, going back to annualcreditreport.com, you're able to obtain that credit report or those credit reports for free. Okay, so now you want to check for this in more detail. Accounts that don't belong to you. Remember, I covered that a little bit. If it's mine, it's mine. If it's not, I want you to get it off. We want to look for incorrect balances. We want to look for duplicate accounts. We want to look for old accounts that, yeah, maybe I messed up on way back in the day, but they've been paid, or the statute of limitation is now off, okay? And so we're going to check those out. Now, if you find that items on your report that are inaccurate or don't belong to you, you can go right in within annualcreditreport.com. It's very easy. Ask me how I know. And you can click a button and it will begin the process for you to, I keep forgetting this word, to dispute the item, okay? Or you can go old school now. You can always, you can go through ftc.com. You can get some sample letters. You can write the letters yourself. Some people prefer that method. And with those letters, you're going to always send them certified mail. So you're going to go visit with your mask the post office. You're going to stand in line and get all of that done. Okay. So you always want to make sure that you reach out to the credit reporting agency that's listing the incorrect information, the credit grantor that is reporting it, or both. Since I'm an overabundance of caution type of person, type A, I do the most, I'm going to contact both of them to dispute the mistake, okay? Put everything in writing. Even if you do it electronically, you still want to print out everything. You want to make sure you keep good records. If you're not an organized person, this is the time that you want to become organized. Let me let you know this, that the credit bureau or the grantor generally get back to you within 30 days of filing the dispute. Say, for instance, if it gets to day 35, you can reach out to them and ask them, okay, like what's really happening? Because if you're not able to reach out to me, that means that something possibly is going wrong and you cannot find the credibility of the mistake that I'm showing, okay? Always, you're going to dispute items that are not yours, okay? You want to make sure you read your emails. So many people negate opening and reading their emails when it's coming from the creditors, when you're going through this dispute process, or when it comes from the credit reporting agencies, you need to do that. It's hard work, but it can be done. Okay, so moving on to our next slide, please. Now, as I stated a couple of minutes ago, you can and should dispute items that are not yours or that are inaccurate. And I also stated you can either write to them or you can do the dispute online. I mean, I do the most, but I'm going to do it online. If you're going to send a letter, just to reiterate, you have to make sure that you mail them certified return receipts. We are in the technology age, and doing everything online is easier and more convenient. Okay, so I would give it a try. Each credit bureau has their very own website, and on each has the option for you to do the dispute. It's very easy steps. So once you get your credit report and you find that there's errors, just wait according to your personality and your money mindset, how you would like to do it. If you would like to do certified mail, definitely no harm, no foul. And if you find it easier to do it online, likewise, you can follow that. Okay, moving on. Next slide. So let time heal the wounds. It still will have an impact on your credit worthiness, but that impact of those bad decisions or of the negative information, it becomes less over time, but only if you do one thing, and that is pay your bills on time. That is the most proven way to increase your credit score and to recover at a rather decent pace, is to pay your bills on time. Step 3, which is on our next slide. Now, sometimes negative information is accurate, but it's due to unusual circumstances that have been brought along by the COVID. In a lot of cases, loss of income, medical bills, divorce. That lockdown caused some strain on some relationships there. So, but if you had a good payment history but fell behind due to these extenuating circumstances, go ahead and reach out to your creditor, especially if there was a time when you were paying on time, and ask them to re-age your accounts. And what that essentially means is delete those previous late payments. You have not because you asked not. So if you are in good standing, or you were in good standing, and life happened and you fell behind, go ahead, reach out to the creditor, bring their attention, fight for your cause that, hey, I paid good until such and such happened. I want to ask if you can re-age, if there's something we can do. Okay, moving to next slide, step 4, which is to build positive new credit references. The best thing you can do to rebuild, as I stated earlier, is to use your credit, but use it carefully. But here's my thing. Always, I cannot stress this enough. And if I can share, I'm a living witness, okay? Because life happens, you can fall behind, but as soon as you start to regain your footing, you may need help from the creditor or whatever, but then you begin to pay it on time, and you will see that you can make a recovery. Now, consumers who are proactive about rebuilding their credit after problems have occurred can see significant improvement in as little as a year or 2. And here are some tips, excuse me while I read them, from some lenders. Lenders will want to see at least a couple of recent credit accounts paid on time. If you still have open accounts, use them periodically for things that you would buy anyway, then make sure to pay the bill well before the due date. This is a trade secret. Use the credit card, use the credit facility, but ensure that you pay your bill, and ensure that you pay it off completely if you can. That's a little tip I'd like to add. Carrying balances doesn't help you rebuild your credit. If someone told you that, they were telling an untruth. Okay, carrying the balances is only going to have you paying additional funds in interest. Okay, then you run the risk of life happening again and you being late. So let's not do that. If you don't currently have any credit cards, it may be a good idea to get one through your credit union. We want you to watch out for those guaranteed approval cards that come in the mail like every other day or so, because they cost you a couple of $100 in fees. And a better bet is a legitimate secured card, which we will talk about. And Gerald may have some input on this as well, as far as what the credit union may offer. So we're moving on to our next slide. Now, Gerald, do you have any information you would like to share? Because I see that this screen here is showing the credit union's secured credit cards, or they can just go into their nearest branch or online and apply.
Yes, so for all of our credit card options, members can go online to www.princegeorgescommunityfederalcreditunion.org/visa, and on that on that landing page we have 3 options for credit cards, which we'll also cover in this presentation briefly. One is a Visa Elite Rewards, a Visa Platinum, Visa Secured. So there are multiple options for members to choose from. And of course, all APR and interest rates are based on credit worthiness.
Okay, all righty. And you can see the picture of the secured card. Their secured card is an ideal way that if unfortunately your credit has tanked and you need a fresh restart, please visit Prince George's Community Federal Credit Union, talk to your representative about that secured card. That is a #1 way of rebuilding, okay, or reestablishing credit. Next slide, please, Gerald. Also, just want to let you know from the previous slide that you can start off with the secured card from Prince George's with a $500 secured balance. Now let's talk about this secured card. I was a banker for a lot of years, okay, before I transitioned into this financial educator role. And a lot of my banking clients would say to me, Miss Doris, I want a secured card. I heard about this, that, and the other regarding a secured card. And yes, ma'am, yes, sir. The amount of money that you put into a savings account that is locked, it is secured to ensure that should you go AWOL on this credit card, that the bank or credit union has the funds to pay the balance. I had one client that said to me, so if I don't pay the balance, I was thinking that if I don't make the monthly payment, you would get it from the savings account. And no, sir, no, ma'am, that is not the case. The secured card is secured because you are putting your funds into an account that are going to sit there for the length of time until such time as you build up your credit, okay, using your secured card, say to buy gas or something nominal. You're going to pay it off every month. And after a few months, the earliest I've seen is 6 months, but definitely by a year, the financial institution will most likely offer you an unsecured credit card. All things being dealt with correctly, meaning that you haven't gone someplace else and have some negative impact on your credit. Okay, so make sure you check out your credit union, Prince George's Community Federal Credit Union, okay, on that about those secured cards. Something else that may be offered as well as we move on to the next page is what we call a credit enhancer loan. Credit enhancer loan. Now you can see here, this is a great to establish or enhance credit, loan amount up to $3,500. And again, the funds are secured by a savings account. So this is also something you may be able to check into through Prince George's to see if you qualify for that, if you are interested in that particular product. So I would encourage you to do so. Okay, moving on. Gerald, oh, I'm so sorry. I meant to ask you. Any input?
Very quickly, so just a little bit more information on the credit enhancer loan. I have a couple notes here. So a credit builder loan is a small loan made by some credit unions and banks in order to help you build your credit. You can check your local credit unions or banks to see who may offer these services. In most cases, you need to have an account with the credit union for a certain amount of time with no overdrafts, and not all credit builder loans are the same. In some cases, it's not actually a loan. It may be an account through the bank or credit union where you make monthly payments, and at the end of your term, they issue you an unsecured credit card for that amount. It could be anywhere from $300 to $600, depending on the institution. In other cases, you get the money from the bank and you make the monthly payments until it's paid off. This is a great way to build or rebuild your credit by showing on-time monthly payments and different types of credit. So those are some additional notes on credit enhancement.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else on the credit enhancer, we'll move to the next page. Your credit responsibilities. So now, credit is your ability to borrow funds, and with an ability to do something comes responsibilities, okay? And let's just share those rather quickly. Your credit responsibilities, as you can see there from your screen, but I have just a few more. Borrow only what you can repay. I'm gonna double back around to that because sometimes people get that misconstrued, but I'm gonna double back around. I'm gonna read some more. Read and understand your credit card contract. You may say, Ms. Doris, that small print, who really does that? We need to do that. Anytime you get an update, an email, a letter from your creditor, you need to read it because sometimes your terms are changing. Sometimes your due date is changing. And if you're not aware of it, it can lead to a late payment or two before you find this out the hard way, which includes a late charge and an adverse reporting on your credit report. So we don't want that to happen. Pay debts promptly. I know you're so tired of me with that, but pay on time. Notify your creditor if you cannot make your payments, okay? Always give them a call. Avoid buying on impulse. I'm going to bypass that because I probably could use some counseling on that. Yes, even your educator. Report lost or stolen credit cards promptly. Ladies, I'm not just picking on you, but sometimes we change purses and we can grab a card and say we're going to put it in a certain section of our purse, especially when we're going out for an evening and we don't retrieve it and we'll think, oh, it's just in my such and such bag. Let's ensure that we find that card because surprisingly, it can fall out. And before you know it, people I can only deal with here in South Florida. You can think it's lost in your house, and yeah, it's lost in your house. Okay, someone has it from when you had it in this other purse, and you didn't check. And need I go any further? Never give your card number over the phone unless you initiate the call or are certain of the identity of the caller. Remember, scams are still prevalent. Scammers are still out there. So I think this is something to keep in mind. Remember I said I was going to double back to borrow only what you can repay? What this means is not to say, yes, I have a job and I know that I'm going to get paid such and such date, so I'm going to be able to pay my minimum payment, or I'm going to be able to pay a little bit more. I have a plan. Ideally, borrow only what you can repay when it comes to especially credit cards, is to borrow only what you can afford in your budget to pay it off completely by the time that bill comes around. Okay, that will give us a whole different consciousness of spending when we think along those lines, that we are only going to borrow what I can repay in my budget without having to pay additional interest. Yes, we're going to leave that there. Okay, so now if you see something and you just have to have them, and that have to have costs you XYZ dollars, and you say, I have a plan, I know I'm going to get a bonus. Yeah, I don't believe in counting my chicks before the eggs hatch. Y'all can tell I'm country. But anyway, just know this. That is what that means. Borrow only what you can repay means to borrow or to charge only what you can pay off completely within your next billings cycle. I'm not passing the collection plate because I preached enough on that, but we can go to the next slide. Tips for using credit wisely. Okay, it's going to be a lot of repeat of what I've said earlier already. Follow your agreement. Okay, remember I said to read your contracts and stuff. Pay your credit cards according to the terms of your agreement. So if something new came along, you will not know unless you read those things that come from the creditor. Pay online. So consider paying your credit cards online or over the telephone to avoid being late with your payments and incurring late fees. Also, you can set up auto pay for your accounts. That way you won't forget. Now, keep balances low. Do not charge anything more on the card until you've paid off the account balance. Remember, I just said that. And keep your balance at approximately 10% or less of your available credit. Another reason why we like to say, even though I know I'm not two-faced, even though I said earlier about the 30%, okay, 10% is ideal because usually we can pay off that 10% within our next billing statement. Let me circle the wagons back around again about paying online and about setting up that auto pay. Remember that auto pay, when you set it up, doesn't care what happens, honey. When that date comes, it's going to come around and it's going to be looking for that money in that account. And then unless you have overdraft protection that's going to protect you if you miss the bank or credit union, it's going to hit, okay, with that overdraft fee, you know? So just want to keep that mindful. And read all your account information, okay? Always read your statements and all information sent by your creditor, as it may be important changes to your account. And sometimes they do change the terms of your account. It's all in the small print. If it goes below a certain balance, sometimes they change your due date. Sometimes they give you offers that you're not aware of, a free month, or whatever the case may be. But if you don't read your emails, if you don't read your agreements, if you don't read what they're sending you, you won't know. Okay, next slide. We're continuing with more tips. Don't skip payments. You'll be charged late fees and penalties, and it's going to damage your credit. So unless the people being the creditor says that you, because of your good payment history, I see that few and far between these days, that you can skip a payment. Let's not go around skipping payments, okay? Don't go over your credit limit. Now, exceeding that limit or getting close to it will damage your credit history and lower your credit score on top of incurring fees. So the closer you get to your credit limit, the more negatively it actually looks, okay? And don't even talking about going over, because most creditors will charge you a fee for going over. But the closer you get to your credit limit, it does not look good as far as credit utilization is concerned. Okay, remember that word from earlier, credit utilization. Minimize your use of cash advances. I'm just going to say that if you just pretend you don't have the ability for a cash advance on your credit card, simply because it is so costly. So we all know that it would have to be extreme circumstances from this point on to use a cash advance. Interest rate or APR for cash advances are usually higher. In addition to, they usually charge a fee in addition to the higher interest rate. Okay, so we don't want to do that. Don't buy credit card protection plans. This tends to be a highly priced and highly profitable for the credit card issuer, but at the end of the day, it's not so profitable when we as consumers need it. Why? Because there is a lot of small print that's not read or it's not shared with us as freely when we sign up for it. Okay, so just beware of your credit card protection plans. Okay, moving to the next screen. Now, more and more, we're seeing alternative credit scoring methods. One that is very prevalent now is something called, well, it was formerly called PRBC, and it was an alternative credit scoring site. It is now known as Connect, micro-built by Connect, known as Connect. And this is where something you would go and register your rent, electricity. You can see from that alternative credit side over here to the right, your telephone, your different things that normally would not be included in credit reporting, but this is something that is being used, and it's beginning to be more widespread. Has nothing to do with the three major credit reporting agencies. It is more so it's on its own, and you will be seeing more of these type of companies, I believe, in the near future begin to sprout up. Okay, moving to the next screen. Gerald, I don't know if we have a question spots possibly. In the meantime, we'll circle back around to that. See how I'm doing on my time. Oh, my time is running away with me. So real quickly, ID theft. Know that ID theft is still alive and well. According to our last research, approximately 15 million United States residents have their identities used fraudulently each year, totaling losses upwards of $50 billion. I live in South Florida, as I mentioned earlier, in the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area. Need I say more? And but it's everywhere. So this is the importance of pulling your credit report. It's also good to enroll in a credit monitoring program, and just be careful with your information. Credit and monitoring programs, guess what? I'm in a credit monitoring program through my credit union. Every month or anytime something goes on with my credit, guess what? I am alerted. I know what's going on. Someone asked, what about Boost? Yes, Boost is definitely something, Miss Lisa, that is being used now for that alternative credit monitoring. Okay, I couldn't help it seeing that question there. I'm so sorry. Going on to the next screen. Okay. Where can you turn? So now that we've shared with you a lot of things that are going on, we already know that the CARES Act and a lot of benefits of the CARES Act. I think the last thing to leave now is the student loan forbearance period. Right now, if you find your place, because just the uncertainty of the times that we're living in, I am going to tell you that you reach out to your creditors with anything that is going on. Okay? Anything that is going on, if you lose your job, if utilities, whatever, being that all of the federal help, federal aid, to my knowledge, is being is practically ended. If you find yourself in situations, reach out to your individual creditors. Okay. Moving on to our next slide, because I know my time is quickly getting away. Skip a pay program. Now, Gerald, I have to ask you, is this something particularly for the credit union? And if you can expound on that a little bit.
Yes, Doris. The answer to that is yes. We do this twice a year. This particular program occurred in December, and it's one of the many ways we help our members survive financially, especially during the pandemic. The details of this program, it gives you the option to forego your December loan payments, all without damaging your credit. And this is intended to help free up extra cash during the holiday season for our members. Like I said, the benefits are again being tweaked still as we continue to navigate this pandemic and all the other barriers that we're moving through as we come out of this 2-year, 3-year COVID pandemic. So.
Right. Okay, so Gerald, I think the next screen would be for you as well, as we talk about the balance transfer cards.
Yes. So as we mentioned a few slides back, we have a few options for credit cards for our members, as you can see on the screen. Now this has actually been updated because we just launched a new campaign called the Freedom to Conquer Your Debt campaign, and basically is you can switch over your high interest credit card and your high interest bills to our reward based Visa Elite and Visa Platinum credit cards. As you can see on the screen, those are the examples how they look. You can save by getting 1.99% APR on your balance transfers all this year. This is through December 2022. You can take advantage of the no balance transfer fees and no annual fees, and the low rates, and also the worldwide perks and acceptance, as you can also see that are listed on the screen. To apply for this, you can visit Prince George's Community Federal Credit Union.org/Visa, or you can call 800-952-7428 to speak to a member service representative. And this also applies to not only current cardholders, but also new cardholders as well.
That's a very good offer. Is it for your members only?
This is for members, but also people that are applying for the first time as well can take advantage of this offer.
Okay, that is good to know. Okay, moving on to our next screen, and we're almost to wrap up here. As I said earlier, how you would need to reach out to your creditors on your own if you're facing any type of financial difficulty at this point. Here is for mortgage relief. Now, you have different backings with your mortgages. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, you would be able to see that in your mortgage documents. First of all, I would call my lender directly if I was facing some type of difficulty with making the payment, because a lot of the federal relief could be coming to an end. Okay, so I will call my individual lender, and then they would take it upon themselves to reach out if they needed to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, or say, for instance, even VA administration if you had a veterans back loan. Okay, so those are those numbers there. And again, I believe you will be getting a copy of this presentation, or you'll be able to view the recording so that you can gather the numbers. Okay, moving on to the next page. Same thing with credit cards. If you find, and I kind of got ahead of myself earlier, if you find that you are having issues because of job loss, or a health issue, whatever the case may be, where you may have issues with your payments, please, 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 the numbers on the back of your cards, reach out to them. If you happen to have a Prince George's Community Federal Credit Union card or loan or whatever, you would reach out to them directly with your personal circumstance, okay, to see what could be done to help you. Sometimes lower minimum payments, pausing of the monthly payments, waiving of late fees, lowering of interest rates. Any of those things or a combination thereof would be a great help to anyone that's going through financial difficulty. Okay, our next screen. Okay, so if the government and your debtors can't help you, you can help yourself. And you're going to have to ask yourself some hard questions. Are you managing your money the best possible way, or the best way possible? And to find out for sure, free help is available. And some places you might not think to look. And we're going to start with moving on to the next slide. And give this a start. Give this a start. And don't shoot the messenger. I'm glad I'm not in person. But no one likes to hear budget, because we think that budget means that it's very constraining, and you're not able to do what you want to do. I work so hard, I should be able to do such and such and such and such. No, we should be able to have the necessities, food, clothing, shelter. All right. So what I would like to propose for you to do, that if you find yourself in a continuous situation of lack, or living paycheck to paycheck. I heard someone that I listened to, a financial czar, I like to call her, said if you live paycheck to Monday, meaning you get paid on Friday and by Monday, there's nothing left. We really need to sit down old school before we go high tech, like my mama does at 87 years old. And you're going to add up your income and your expenses, and you're going to start a budget just to see where you stand. From there, I would say, moving on to the next page, that you reach out for some expert help. Now, your HR department, or you may have someone there at the credit union. And definitely with coffee, we have individuals that are able to give you a free debt analysis. What did I tell you earlier? My favorite four-letter word is free, FREE. No cost to you. A different voice that's speaking to you to let you know, yes, you can cut back here. Yes, you can do this here. And they're going to take all your income, all your expenses, do some projections for you, and it costs absolutely nothing to get it done. I will check with Prince George's. A lot of the banks and credit unions these days have platforms where you're able to budget and able to do it relatively painless. But if you find that it's not getting you anywhere, then of course, reach out to experts, the expert help that is there and available for you. Okay, I think, Gerald, that will conclude it for me. The next slide, I believe, talks about the credit union. Again, thank you all for the invite. I have really enjoyed my time. Forgive me for going a few minutes over, because you can see I'm Chatty Patty and a part-time comedian. So I like to share financial education, and I love the opportunity to share with Prince George's Community Federal Credit Union. Thank you all again. Gerald, to you.
All right. So thank you for attending today's educational webinar. If you'd like to learn more about Prince George's Community Federal Credit Union or speak to a member service representative, you can visit www.princegeorgescfcu.org or call 800-952-7428. Again, we'd like to thank Doris Baker and Coffee for their support. To schedule your free 60-minute financial coaching session, please call Coffee at 866-459-5165. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you all. Take care.